quirky, funny, heartwarming, with moments of cannibalistic demonic violence. That's how best to describe Uncle Peckerhead, written and directed by Matthew John Lawrence. So this focuses on this small-time punk band, a 3-member band, 2 girls and 1 guy, and they're just kind of starting out on their kind of musical career, so to speak. They had doing a tour to try and promote the band in hopes of ultimately be getting a record deal and kind of headlining this particular kind of gig at the end of their festival. However, they are in need of a tour van. So they desperately try and go around and find one, and they run into this guy who seems to be sleeping in his van. And he offers to not only lend them the van, but also come with them as their kind of their roadie and basically help with the kind of the band. And they kind of agree. And he's an older guy, and he harbours a dark secret. And that secret is at midnight every night he turns into a demon for 13 minutes and goes on a bloody killing spree, eating his victims. Now, the band are obviously initially shocked by this, but they actually decide after a little while that maybe they can kind of live with it, perhaps. He seems to be able to sedate himself, and sometimes he seems to have some type of influence maybe over the fans and things like that. What will happen the rest of the movie, you'll have to find out. So let's first of all talk about what works with Uncle Peckerhead. The guy's called Peck, or Peckerhead is his full name apparently, but they called him Peck, hence the name. So certainly an original style kind of story here. Can't think of anything. I mean, there may be films that are similar to this, but to me it was quite a kind of an original idea. And despite it actually having some, some kind of ultra violence within the movie, although it isn't kind of like, it's not loads of it, but when it happens, they do it to a high standard, shall we say. But it actually gave me the feels, this movie. The movie is genuinely about kind of friendship and the relationships that we build with other people and how maybe these kind of relationships change. And I actually genuinely found it kind of, like I say, it kind of gave me the feels to a certain degree. And it's basically these guys maybe accepting the fact that this guy has this condition and seeing him for what he is, and him really finding people who accept him and how his kind of attitude and how he kind of really, it helps him as well. So it's actually quite a an uplifting story in a weird way, and I can't think of another horror that you would kind of really describe like this. So it's very kind of unique. What else works? I gotta say, I enjoyed the characters here. I thought all of our 4 main characters, and we do see a few other kind of supporting roles as well, and they're kind of quite fun. I actually kind of quite liked them. We have obviously our main kind of character, Judy, that's kind of the leader of the band, so to speak. She's somewhat neurotic and seems to be the one to kind of make the decisions here, but you kind of get a good, she's the one maybe the least kind of fussed about having a demon along for the ride, but she'll kind of soften to him to a certain degree. We have her kind of the other female member, who is this kind of sardonic, somewhat depressive woman, but kind of who's like super deadpan comedy, and like this excitable guy who's like the lead sort of singer and stuff like that. And then Peck himself just seems to be quite honest with you, quite charming and quite kind of personable, apart from when he's ripping people's faces off. So I really, really enjoyed the kind of the character work here, and as I've said in many reviews, good character work will get you, a long way in the movie in my books. So let's talk about the actual horror side of stuff. So I have to say, I mean, outside, there's one instance where I felt it maybe was a little on the weak side, but the majority of the kind of the attacks that we see, the gore is pretty gruesome in parts, and only kind of one effect I think didn't really work, where he sort of takes someone's face off. But for the most part, the gore is all bloody gooey, gory, and practical effects. And the kind of I guess the last kind of like the finale, so to speak, involves all sorts of kind of like bodily fluids and gross stuff as well. So it goes pretty OTT. That was also sort of quite fun. The movie does have quite a kind of fun sense of humour as well, and the interactions that we kind of get with supporting characters as well are kind of quite amusing. Okay, so maybe what doesn't work. Realistically, there's not much plot in this film, ultimately. Our characters don't really have any kind of conflict or adversity until really the last 15 minutes of the film. There's not even like a build-up of something brewing, to be honest with you. It really just kind of, there's the last 50 minutes, something will happen, and at that point our kind of characters the stakes are raised a little bit. But until then, it's just a journey, you know, without kind of any real, I mean, there's a couple of demonic attacks, but our characters seem to be, you know, completely okay and safe and everything like that. So I have to say, I think maybe it needed to have a little bit more story-wise to it, because I think when we do have the last 15 minutes, I feel it's a little bit kind of crammed in, and it could have had more build-up to it in regards to more kind of dramatic tension. As it is, the film is quite fun and quirky, but somewhat directionless, because it just feels like you're just watching these kind of guys who are in a band whose roadie happens to be a demon for 30 minutes a night, without any kind of real direction on the plot, so to speak. So it's certainly, I like the character work, and I think that the effects are good, but to me the story could have done some work here. And when we do get that, like that last 50 minutes, it feels a little bit too much, trying to cram a little bit too much in, a little bit too late. I think maybe as well, because of this, the pacing may put some people off, and people might think nothing's really happening within this movie, and ultimately find it a little bit kind of like dull at times. The humour I actually quite enjoy, but sometimes people might find it a little irreverent, I will say as well. Overall, I think this was a fun and quirky and original film that I actually quite enjoyed, but I think it lacks some kind of direction, and it kind of, the narrative is ultimately quite weak with it. But I do think, because it's so original, I will have to give this, you know, an above average mark. So 6 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.